You are listening to the Body Charge podcast, and I'm your host, Sandy Sanderson. Our topic today is how to tap into body awareness and influence health. And my special guest is Brittany Cano. Sorry about that. Brittany Cano. Yeah, I had to get that right. I am not in my best situation today because I have a little bit, I don't know if you can hear it, a little bit of a sinus congestion. And the reason is that, health is often influenced by many, many different factors. And my focus has always been very strongly for nutrition, make sure I get, plenty of magnesium and vitamin C and, all the good environmental factors. But what happens to us as human beings is we encounter emotional stress, and any kind of stress can be very debilitating. So in the management of health, we need to factor in other strategies so it's more holistic and well-rounded. And I think that's Brittany's specialty, because she has a bachelor's degree in science of nursing and is certified as a life coach, personal trainer, health coach, EFT and mindfulness practitioner, Reiki healer, and yin yoga instructor. Through her holistic wellness programs, classes and retreats, both locally and abroad, she utilizes her background as a critical care nurse of 13 years, combined with her experience in holistic wellness and somatic training to bring you transformation that is enjoyable and sustainable. So with having said that, Brittany, what brought you from being a critical care nurse in emergency medicine to becoming an holistic wellness expert?
Specific point in time, I had a patient in the ICU who was a code blue, which means her heart had stopped, this particular patient, and we had to resuscitate her and try to bring her back. So we had her in ICU, and I remember just thinking, wow, unfortunately, she's probably not going to make it. And there's so many reasons why she could, right? Had she chosen a different path and had a different lifestyle, because so many of the things that she was affected with, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, can actually be preventable. And at that same time, I personally was going through a whole life transformation. And so it was just one of those epiphany moments, wow, I got to get on the other side of supporting people from not ending up in the hospital, because through lifestyle medicine and our choices, we have so many ways to empower ourselves and to live a healthy life.
We do. And we find out more as we travel along. And I think we have to be open to learning. I think that's the key element. And so I take my hat off to you, because when someone is trained in a mainstream medical system, such as, being a nurse or a doctor in the hospital system, everything is very, very regimented. It's black and white a lot of the time. You have to follow, very strict procedures, protocols. You can't think outside the box. You can't think creatively. You just have to follow the bouncing ball. And so it's a big stretch then to move to a more holistic version of healthcare, which encompasses many aspects of us being humans, and also catering to individual needs, because we don't all fit in the same box. We can't all wear the same T-shirt. And having that holistic approach allows you to tap in and really cater for someone's individual needs a lot better. Now, let me give you an example of why this is so appropriate and kind of ironic for today's podcast, because I've had some emotional issues myself popping up, which are very unusual, in that my mother suddenly, so I was traveling around doing shows, expos, exhibitions, and everything was going fine. On the 24th of July, I came back, and on that day, my mother suddenly couldn't walk. She couldn't get up. She had developed a fracture in the 6th thoracic vertebrae, which caused a spinal compression, and that blocked her nerve connections. And suddenly the whole world changed, and we had to, she went to hospital, and then the hospital transferred her to a nursing home. And I always thought, not having had any experience in that area, that nursing homes are where you get nursing care. But we're finding that the system is very neglected. and you know, the hygiene hadn't been kept, and her catheter hadn't been cleaned and changed regularly. I mean, she had the same thing in for weeks on end. She developed an infection in her bladder and her kidneys. She had to go to hospital. She got sepsis. She, you know, elderly people can die from sepsis, and it can go quite quickly. So she had a close call from this infection, which just came from lack of care. So my world has been a little bit turned upside down because I'm emotionally tapping into her sense of feeling abandoned, neglected, now dependent on others, where she was always very free spirit, did whatever she wanted. You know, I can do it myself kind of personality. And suddenly she's having very much stress every day in her new situation, having to learn. And no matter what I do, I'm a problem solver, and usually I can detach and just get the job done, whatever has to be done. But I find myself empathically tapping into her distress level. So I go to sleep with it, I wake up with it. And what it's done is, I think suddenly I've developed a sinus blockage in my nasal cavity, whereas, you know, that's very unusual for me. And it brought to light that this load, this emotional load that we can carry, you know, because life dishes you out. Sometimes when it rains, it pours. We get like overloaded. And my focus had been on a lot of nutritional protocols, but then you've got this technique that you use in your practice called tapping, which was very interesting for me to read about. And it does address how to manage better and rebalance your emotional self so that it doesn't impact on stress and health. So can you explain a little bit more about what you do and how it works?
Yeah, I definitely can. And Sandy, my heart goes out to you and your mom, right? When we are so close with somebody, if we're close with a parent or a significant other, and we're in the caregiving role, even more so sometimes, we do, right? We're energetic beings, and what's going on with our loved ones, it does have an effect on us. So really encouraging you and anybody who's having emotional troubles right now or hardships to practice self-compassion, right? To really practice being gentle with yourself during this time, and also remembering, like, what do I really need as well, making sure that you're taking care of yourself alongside, you know, being that nurturing daughter that it sounds like you are. But to go into more of what emotional freedom technique is, I absolutely love this tool. It's a very simple practice.
So EFT is emotional freedom technique.
Yep.
It involves tapping certain points on the body, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's different meridian points. There's little acupressure points all throughout the body. If you think of acupuncture, if somebody's familiar with that, just kind of the same concept, but instead of needles, we're using our own fingertips to tap on these areas. And when we do that, we lower our stress response. So we lower our cortisol, and we also get a feel-good boost. We get a release of healthy hormones. So we get a boost of dopamine as well. And so we're able to, if we're working with a practitioner or somebody who's teaching us that, we're able to address whatever's going on with us. So it can be great for cravings. It can be great for like negative stress, anxiety, helping you get to sleep, pain even. Some people use it for pain. So it's a really great tool. It's a very forgiving practice, I always say, like one of those ones you really can't mess it up to, you know,
You
really
can't make a
mess it up.
mistake. Yeah.
Not really. Yeah. There's certain patterns of tapping that are going to be more effective
And you can
for
never
shifting the
overdose.
energy in the body. Yeah. I don't think you'll overdose. But what it does too is it syncs, like you were saying, it syncs the mind, it connects the body and the emotions in a state where we're calm. So then our body's calm, our mind starts to be calm. We soften the emotions. And then from that place, we're not so much in fight or flight. And now we're able to address whatever the issue is.
Yes, so it's very important to self-care, as you said, and being a busy person as I am, it's very easy to forget, or to, I have to get through this long list and there's one more thing to do, and there's always one more thing to do. You know, because we're in a business of service to others, and my focus is always, well, what do they need? And then I tend to forget about my own needs, as you pointed out. It reminds me of that saying when you fly in an airplane and they give you the instructions, and if the oxygen mask drops down, put it on yourself first so that you can be a help to others.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and to piggyback on what I was saying about self-compassion is taking care of ourselves and taking care of our relationships. But if we forget to take care of ourselves, right, it affects us negatively, and it also affects our relationships negatively. So remembering to prioritize our own well-being as well, because at the end of the day, that's going to keep us around to keep doing the service that we want to do, the work that we're here to do, and also to be with our loved ones.
Yeah, so mindset is very important, has a big impact on health. And if you are feeling emotionally stressed, the adrenaline's constantly pumping and it can have deleterious effects. So, for instance, it will steal your resources. It will overcome the magnesium in your body, which normally may work quite well. But if you have an overload of adrenaline, you tend to pee out more magnesium. And so then you become deficient in magnesium and you need a lot more than you would otherwise normally need to bring back the equilibrium, to recover. And so the emotional side is very interesting for me, the mind and how it works. And, you know, I think it takes a lot of practice. But if you have other techniques that you can learn to use that are, you know, where you don't really think too much, because I can overthink things. So the tapping strategy sounded very appealing to me because, you know, then you can just like go into a Zen space and just carry something out, which is like a very simple, physical, repetitive thing. So can you explain a bit more how that works?
How it works as far as
The
what is
tapping.
it?
So could you give us a demonstration, for instance,
I can definitely give us a demonstration. So with tapping, we're going to start tapping on the side of our hand.
yeah,
So underneath the pinky finger, usually 2 to 3 fingertips, a light little tap.
yeah,
So we're only going to do this side once. And so if we were going to work with somebody, I might say, even though I've been dealing with all of this stress, I'm open to feeling better now. Even though things have been stressful, I'm open to letting them go. Even though things have been stressful, I'm safe in this moment. And then we would go ahead and we go to that eyebrow point. So we tap on the area right by the point of the eyebrow, right here on the side.
that's where you tend to get a big wrinkle, isn't it?
It is where the 11 is, but on the side of the brow. And then we're going to go to the corner of the eye, not at the temple, but that little groove. And again, you can tap with 1 finger, you can tap with 2 fingers, just a little, you know, a little moderate tap. And then on the cheekbone, so underneath the eye, we're going to continue tapping. I always encourage people to stay with their breath when they're doing this.
Yeah, can't forget
And
to
then
breathe.
yeah, remember to breathe. That's another really important tool. And then underneath the nose, in that little groove there above the lip. So we'll tap there. And then we'll go underneath the bottom lip in the little fold there. I can already feel myself feeling calmer. And then we're going to go to the collarbones. I like to tap on both collarbones, but you can do one side, you can do both sides. Again, I typically don't give it too much care if it's if I start on my left or do the right. If I'm working with a client, we'll typically try one side and sometimes we'll switch sides. And then underneath the armpit, so like in the area for women where kind of where the bra strap it sits. And then top of the head, this little spot in the top of the head.
It seems to me you're following the lymph system. Would that be right? The lymph?
With this, I don't think that it entirely does, but I think parts of it do. But it's the meridian points, and then we just go back to the eyebrow point. We actually skip the hand
Like
on
make
the
a
follow
circuit
through.
out of
Yeah,
your...
but initially for listeners who are listening to this and maybe driving in their car, one that I like is just even tapping on the sternum with like 2 or 3 fingertips, just tapping on the sternum. You're still going to get that stress response reduction. So you're going to get that lower cortisol. You're going to start to connect more with your body. It's a good reminder. Let me breathe.
Yeah, so that's
Let me drop into my heart.
calmness, and then the vagus nerve, which when you're feeling stressed, it locks up. So that's just reminding it needs to let go so you can breathe.
Yeah. And yeah, so that could be a good one to do. Even we have these meridian points in our fingertips too. Like, so say you're going into a meeting and you want to take your thumb and tap on the outside of the nail bed there.
While
You
you're
can do
waiting
that.
for
Yeah.
tense.
Yeah, for waiting something if you don't want to do that full tapping sequence in an office space somewhere around your friends.
Yeah, no one can
Do
see.
that
It's
too.
very
Do you
inconspicuous.
do you notice a difference at all from tapping, Sandy?
Yeah,
Do you feel any calmer?
I do. I do feel calmer and clearer, funnily enough.
Yeah, that was just one round. So
A bit
typically you
clearer
go through it
a few
5 to 7
times.
times. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably pumping a little bit too much adrenaline during this podcast.
So this would be a really great thing to do before the podcast. I have a client who I did this process with because she was terrified to do her MRI. So we were able to do the tapping and the MRI, and we got her in a state where she was like imagining going into the MRI. And we were able to actually do this through a meditation process of tapping on her future self as though she was going into the MRI. And then when she got to the MRI machine, she was able to do the test. I mean, she still had some anxiety, but she was able to complete the test, whereas a week before she couldn't do it.
Wow. I imagine that would be quite useful for children as well. You know, if they're a little bit hyperactive or suffer from anxiety, or had something bad happen at school, maybe they encountered a bully and they were upset, just to help them just to center again.
So great for kids. A woman came on our retreat and she recently shared that she taught her little boy tapping, and she shared that he said, "Mommy, I'm not going to have anxiety anymore. I started feeling it today in school and I did the tapping and it went away." And he's 9 years old. I'm like, that's so cool. It's such a simple but yet effective tool. I love it because
Very
it works for
empowering.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. Reminds me a lot of magnesium. When you have a magnesium massage, you're moving the circulation, and magnesium's passing into the body, doesn't interfere with digestion, and you get a fast relaxation effect. And I tend to focus on those areas which you mentioned are the meridian points, funnily enough, because I feel that that's more beneficial. You know, instinctively you go there if you can use your intuition a little bit more. You can feel those special power points. I know what you would call them, meridian points, power points, special connections or junctions where the electrical system starts to come together, electrical nervous system, and you're making it move more fluidly so that you don't get obstructions. So,
Perfectly
more
said.
things can get constipated than just the bowel, and that's the electrical system, the nervous system. So the more strategies we can employ to keep that electrical system and the fluids of the body moving, the better the brain functions, because the brain needs water and electrolytes, and it needs that stimulation. That's why moderate exercise is good as well. We're bringing more oxygen in, the lymph, the blood circulation's moving, everything's moving. So in your practice, do you incorporate other factors such as exercise as well as the nutrition and the EFT?
I do, because like you said, we're holistic beings. So when I work with a client, we look at all of that. We look at the nutrition, what's going on, how are you eating, how are you sleeping, how are you moving, what's your stress level, what's your life like at home and at work. And then we create a plan based on whatever is going on with the client so that it's really specific to meet their needs. Because like you said so eloquently, is that we got to keep the electrical system going in the body. We've got to keep things circulating. We got to get our energy really in harmony, in our mind. We got to get our mind in harmony with our body, with our emotions, because it all works together. So really look at the person as a whole and everything that's going on with them.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really helping people to relearn how to manage their life, their body, their health, to avoid, as you said, avoid the bad things down the track. If we stay numb or oblivious to the things we need to do for maintenance, like we maintain our car, we put good oil in, we get the servicing done and the tires changed and lots of things for the car, but we tend to forget about our own body. And it also needs many strategies to maintain best health. And when you have best health, of course, we can live into our senior years without degenerative disease. We can just, one day when time's up, just fall asleep and not wake up. And it doesn't need to be dramatic, or there doesn't need to be suffering involved. But we have to learn early, I think, how to manage that health in the best way possible, avoid the chemicals. It's good nutrition. And as you said, a very holistic approach. And for me, the missing gap, I think, is to pay more attention to my self-care.
It can get easy to, like you said, put it on the back burner, but our bodies are very wise and they'll get our attention and let us know. So when something's off in our body, I think it can be easy to go to, what's wrong with my body? And remembering like, oh no, my body's actually giving me a gift by telling me, let's say my stomach is upset, or I'm so tired all the time, or I had a sinus infection. It's like, hey, something's going on here. We need some TLC. Can we look into this? So it's actually a really beautiful thing, even though it's not always comfortable and there's some suffering involved when we get sick. But our body's doing what it's supposed to do.
If we don't listen, it starts to hit you over the head with a bigger hammer.
That's so true, isn't it? So true.
Yeah, I think that's the lesson. So that sounds really interesting. If people want to learn more or to connect with you for education or health coaching, where would they go?
They'd go to holisticnursecoaches.com. That's my website. And so from there, if they come, they can book a complimentary Discover Elevated Wellbeing call with me. And also, if they wanted to get on my newsletter list, they can get a free tapping session, recording, as well as a digital affirmation card.
Well, that's a good idea, a recording. So in case you forget the strategies or where to tap, you can just click something and get a reminder.
Yeah, once you do it a few times, most people do actually tend to remember it. Believe it or not, I teach it to clients and then they'll either use it later that day or the next day and they're like, oh, that worked. So it's one of those things. Another tool I'd love to leave everybody with, which is pretty simple and even less to remember than the tapping, is like you were talking about the vagus nerve. So a breath that's going to stimulate that vagus nerve and create that sense of calm in the body. And it's going to be a double inhale through the nose. So, and then a long sighing exhale out through the mouth. Completely emptying the lungs. And I encourage people to do that 3 to 5 times, a few times throughout the day, anytime. And then that way you have that muscle memory in the brain when you get stressed to remember that.
Remember to breathe.
Yeah, really make that exhale long and exaggerated and breathe down into the belly, because that stimulates the vagus nerve, and so does that sigh. It stimulates the vagus nerve. And so it's a really good free tool that's super effective and backed by science and can make a world of difference. And talking about tapping into that mind-body connection, the breath is a beautiful way to do that.
The breath of life.
Yes, exactly.
Well, it's been really lovely to chat with you, and I'm sure people will get a lot out of it. And thank you so much for being my special guest today, Brittany. Really love to have you.
Thank you, Sandy, and thanks for having me on. And now I'm going to look up that magnesium massage that you talked about, because that sounds so lovely.
Yeah, have a look at our website, electramagnesium.com.au. Lots of information. And if you would like to, as a practitioner, join into our network, just send me an email and I'll give you the information.
Beautiful. I do love magnesium. I'm going to check it out more. Thank you so much, Sandy.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I hope you liked this conversation and will share it with others. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. If you want to listen to other Body Charge conversations, click like, subscribe, the bell icon, and click all notifications. Subscribe to our newsletter to get updates on blogs, podcasts, videos, and magnesium special offers at electramagnesium.com.au. Relax, recharge, and recover.